All right. Well, if no one else has a brag, then I will turn it over to Bryce to introduce today's program.
Great. Thanks, Julia. Uh, our program today is brought to us by Amy Brownell. Um, she is the Eastern Washington County Regional Coordinator for Second Home, which is a program of Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon. She previously worked in international adoption and as a physical education teacher and coach. As an undergrad, she was honored to be a Rotary exchange student in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, and a Brookings, Oregon Rotary Scholarship recipient. Amy and her husband of 21 years are parents to 6 children, 2 of whom are in college now. Amy values closing gaps in equity and joining together with folks about needed change in our communities. Her current work with Second Home is a beautiful and sometimes messy opportunity to partner with communities to help young people struggling with housing instability. In her personal time, when there's not a pandemic, she enjoys playing roller derby. So if you would join me in welcoming Amy Brownell.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to pop on here with you all and let you know about our program and the issue of unaccompanied youth, which unfortunately does not escape any community in Oregon. And I'm going to share my screen. I have some slides. Give me 1 second. And then if you wouldn't mind checking to mute yourself, just because then we won't have, there is a video that I'm going to try to play. We'll see how it goes. Sometimes it's a little bit weird on trying to transmit it over Zoom and internet speeds. So if it gets choppy, we'll just cut it out. But it gives kind of a different picture of our program as well. So we'll give it a shot. And then, yeah, if you're all muted, then there won't be kind of that cross sound happening. So thanks, Bryce, for the introduction. And as he said, A Second Home is a program of Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, which has a variety of programs. If you're not familiar with Ecumenical Ministries, it is an organization that I kind of think of it as like a hub and spoke. So Ecumenical Ministries is the hub. They do a lot of things around policy work at the state level. And then they have the spokes, which are various programs, and Second Home is one of them. And we primarily serve unaccompanied youth, high school students in local communities. Our mission is to provide stable housing and ongoing support for unaccompanied students experiencing housing instability, and so that they can focus on completing their secondary education and discover and realize their gifts and potential. The Second Home came about as kind of an idea modeled after another Ecumenical Ministries program that is called Metro Home Share. And Metro Home Share is basically the adult version of our program, which basically somebody who has a room in their home that wants to open it up to, at a very low rent to someone who's struggling with housing instability or homelessness. And then they're able to rent that space out to that person and kind of help pay their own expenses. So Beaverton School District has a McKinney-Vento liaison, which I'll describe what that is in just a minute. And their McKinney-Vento liaison came to Ecumenical Ministries and said, you know, we have all these resources from the school district that we can connect unaccompanied students with clothing and with healthcare and with food, but we can't connect them with housing. Can we work together and create a model off of your Metro Home Share, but for youth? So they spent a year developing the program and began serving students in 2010 in Beaverton, and has been slowly developing, building community relationships and trust over the past almost 11 years. We're heading into our 11th year. We now have programs in the Gresham-Barlow School District and all the school districts of Clackamas County. The Estacada, I think, is now coming on board. And in Washington County, we are serving Forest Grove, Gaston, Banks, Sherwood, as soon as Sherwood, and we can get together on a working agreement, Tigard, Tualatin, and Beaverton. And we've been working in Forest Grove for a little over a year, about a year and a half now, and just slowly getting the word out and helping people understand the issues around youth homelessness.
Only those kids can tell you really what it's like to be alone when the sun goes down.
I talked with a student last night. He's been sleeping in a different place every single night for several weeks now.
We had 2 kids. They were both sleeping, one under the overhang of a basketball court of a middle school. The other one actually spent several nights in the school dugout with all the clothes he owned on his back.
And then coming in early in the morning to take a shower, get cleaned up, and no one knew about it.
Sleep in the dugout, go to school the next day, did that several days before he got up the courage to tell a teacher what was happening. When a person, for some reason or another, is disconnected and completely by themselves, that's got to be the scariest thing in the world. They've used up all the resources within themselves and still they don't have a home, and still they don't have people around them who are expressing concern and care. That is lonely, and that's scary. We say that we're matching kids with home providers and providing them stable housing so they can graduate. It's much more than that. A home is a place where you know you can come, and this is your space. The students that I'm talking with say, I want that family who is going to sit down with me at dinner. And more often than not, these kids that we work with have never had the opportunity to sit down with a family to dinner, and they want that. They want to know what that's like to have a family that cares about them. I met with someone just this week, and this student just kind of ran out and said, what I want in a home? Love. That says it all. And they are missing that crucial piece of having been loved and cared about and nurtured. And that's what they want. Isn't that what we all want?
Okay, so as I said earlier, no community in Oregon really escapes the issue of unaccompanied youth, and there were 3,700 unaccompanied youth in the state of Oregon in the 2018-2019 school year. Unaccompanied means that the young person is not living within their family or guardian. They're basically living on their own, and the reasons for that are many, and they're varied, but often include unsafe circumstances in the home. DHS is not usually involved. It's kind of a gap. So it's not a case where DHS has been called and a case has been opened, but the young person still feels unsafe or unwelcome and chooses to leave, and sometimes their family forces them to leave for a variety of reasons. And sometimes even the parents are experiencing homelessness themselves, or a parent has been deported. There's just a variety of reasons that a 16, 17, 18-year-old would find themselves on their own. So this is just some data from Washington County from the 2018-2019 school year. And you can see Forest Grove had 17 unaccompanied students that school year. It went up a little bit last year. And they're actually predicting across the board, they're predicting a 40 to 45% jump in homelessness after the eviction moratoriums are over. And so this upcoming school year could be pretty intense as far as the needs. So what are host homes and what do we do? So host homes, we match community members who have a room in their home that they would like to allow a student to share, and they we are kind of the connection. It's not foster care. We're not matching, but we provide the student with options. So a home provider would sign up for our program, and I will get into kind of how the flow of each case works. But once they are ready to go, a student would move in and live with them as if they were a roommate, but it's kind of like hosting an exchange student. It would be similar to that. And so why are host homes a solution for youth homelessness? First, they provide a stable living environment, and they kind of normalize a high school experience for the youth. So what happens a lot is if a young person has moved out or been asked to leave their home, they will often go stay with a friend. And that is not usually a sustainable or long-lasting or even a stable arrangement, because they're constantly feeling like they might be overstaying their welcome. They could be asked to leave at any moment. The space is not theirs. Maybe they don't have their things or even a space of their own. So it's not a stable living environment for them. But even sometimes students are living elsewhere. They're living outside, living in a car. Sometimes they're living at Safe Place, which is a shelter, youth shelter in Hillsborough. And Safe Place really only has, I want to say, 10 or 12 beds. So they can only host or house students for a short period of time and a kind of low number of students. So a host home creates a more normal environment for a student. It's safer and more stable than most other options. So just being in a household with a caring adult who cares where they are and when they're coming home and that they're eating well, and just somebody who's there for them makes it a more stable environment and safer for them. It's rooted in community and relationships. So our whole model is based on relationships. The home provider and the student, I said it's more than being a roommate, and it really is. And it's also very individualized. So a student may or may not really want a close family type relationship, but oftentimes it is somewhere around a mentorship, I like to call it. We have home providers where the student has actually lived with them for many years because they've graduated high school, but the home provider says, you can just stay because we love each other, and they just continue their relationship in that way. And other home providers and students keep contact after the student moves on. So really it's building a long-lasting relationship oftentimes for the student, and a place for them to kind of come back to, as far as, as they're becoming more independent, they can reach back out to that adult that was in their life, hosting them, and get guidance and advice on things that are going on. Just a really beautiful relationships can develop out of this program. It is cost effective. It's having youth live in a home environment is a whole lot cheaper than building more institutions like shelters or other things that just are very cost heavy. It is also a more trauma-informed response. If you have heard anything about being trauma informed, it's just a way of being sensitive and compassionate to the lived experiences of someone else. And a lot of traumas heal through relationship, safe relationship where a person can knows that this other person is there and cares about them. And so this is a very trauma-informed response to a lot of the traumas that the youth have experienced. On a technical note, the students leave the program with a rental history because the way our program is set up, and I'll describe that in a second, is they establish a rental agreement. There's no actual money paid for the rent. The rent is agreeing to stay on track in school and remaining drug and alcohol free and participating in some mutually agreed upon household responsibilities. But once they leave the program, they have a rental history. So when they go try to rent an apartment in a more traditional sense, they have a reference. So our priorities are to empower students to make decisions about their own lives with guidance and encouragement. This is why we don't match. We don't tell a student, you're going to go live with this person. We say, here are the home providers that are available, and they choose who they want to interview and who they would like to live with if that home provider extends an invitation to them. We strive to be culturally sensitive and trauma aware, and to train our home providers to also be that, to make it a safe space for the youth. We focus on students' individual needs. So oftentimes one home provider student relationship will look a lot different than another one because they each have different needs and situations. And we prioritize relationships and connections for students, certainly, but for everybody in the partnership, for the home providers, for our staff, for the school district employees that are also tied into this relationship, as well as community members and others who come around and support the youth. And that's kind of what this model looks like. We have the student in the foreground because they are the focus of all of our relationships. We have school district, home providers, and mediators who support the student, and that entire partnership forms the second home relationship. And then we're surrounded by other supporting groups from the business and faith communities, from partner organizations and community groups. So through the 2018-2019 school year, we have provided housing for 120 students. We've served 450 students in other ways. So we will work with students to provide, find other resources for them, even if they don't want to seek housing through our program. And our graduation rate is 90 to 95%. And if you look at data for students experiencing homelessness, they're generally graduating, I believe it's at 54%, their graduation rate is. And so it really speaks to what that stability can do for a student who is motivated to finish high school. It just stabilizes them so that they can focus on school and not worry about where they're going to sleep or what they're going to eat or how they're going to shower or how they're going to do their homework when they don't have a place to sit down and do that. So this is how our program flows. We recruit and prepare home providers. We receive a student referral, usually through the school district, and that can come from their high school counselors, who are usually the ones that identify students who might be good candidates for our program and who might be in need. But also the other school staff that we rely on heavily are the McKinney-Vento liaisons, and I mentioned them earlier. The McKinney-Vento Act is a federal law that guarantees certain rights for students experiencing homelessness, and so each school district has at least one liaison. And Forest Grove has a fantastic liaison, David Perot. Some of you may know him. He is great, and we work closely with him and the school counselors when they have a student who might want to come into our program. When a student comes in, we provide them a profile of the home providers that we have available. Ideally, we would have like 5 or 6 to show them. Usually it's 1 or 2, if that. And, they would have a pick then to be able to select who they think would be a good fit for them. And they reach out for an interview. And if the first interview goes well over the phone, then they would proceed to a second interview, maybe more in person. Right now during COVID times, we're taking it at people's comfort levels, doing Zoom meetings and things like that, or physically distanced meetings. And then at that point, the home provider can decide if they want to extend an invitation to the student to move in. The student can choose to accept or decline. And if they both agree, then we set up a facilitated discussion. And what that means is we use the mediation program from Hillsborough. Both Hillsborough and Beaverton have mediation programs that are set up in the Hillsborough one is set up in the police precinct, and Beaverton's is in City Hall. But what they do basically is divide Washington County in half down 185th, and everything to the west of 185th is covered by Hillsborough Mediation Program. So a mediator from Hillsborough Mediation Program will come and sit down with or Zoom, they will Zoom with them, with the home provider and the student, and they'll go through a series of questions and things to think about so that they can build their own rental contract. And after that, the student moves in, and we follow up. Our staff follows up pretty regularly, just informally via text or email or even a phone call. We'll do a little bit more formal one at 1 month. And then at 2 months after the student has moved in, the mediator will touch base with them again and go through the rental agreement to make sure everything is working well, and they'll fine tune some things if needed. So what do our students look like? They are self-motivated to graduate. They commit to remaining drug and alcohol free. They have no history of violent behavior. They were the ones that make decisions about which home provider to interview, and we don't place them. And they will work with a home provider and a mediator to put together a rental agreement. And the home providers are people who care about teens and their futures, have a desire to help and be involved in a student's life to the extent that the student would like. They can provide a room and meals for a student. Some students qualify for SNAP, and so that can kind of support the food intake at home. The home providers are not expected to parent. I mentioned earlier that this is not foster care, so there's not a parenting expectation. In fact, we ask home providers to really adjust their expectations if that's what they are when they're coming into the program, because it's not a parenting relationship that we're encouraging. It can be friendship, it could be mentorship, it could be, a caring adult caring about a young person. And that's usually how they turn out in most cases anyway. And home providers are willing to go through the home provider training and background check processes. And if you can't host, there are other ways to help. You can be part of a care team, which is a group of volunteers kind of informally put together. And ideally, we would have kind of a lead volunteer that when a need comes up, like recently we had a student whose phone had broken, and she has a job, and she's in school, so she needs her technology, especially now during distance learning. And so we were able to put the need out there that, does anybody have an old iPhone sitting around that they're not using that they could donate? And we got her an older one, but it works and it's great. So things like that, just filling needs. A student might need basketball shoes for the basketball season, or a prom dress, or there's a variety of needs that come up. They need a dresser. And so the care team also would do things like put together birthday baskets or graduation gifts, or welcome baskets, things like that. And so that's a way to support the program as well. Talking about this program is probably the most important thing, just to get the word out, because people don't know about host homes. they've never heard of it. They're like, what are you talking about? And so and also people don't know about unaccompanied youth. I think most of us assume that if a young person is not living at home, that they must be in foster care, that somebody's looking out for them, but that's really not the case. And so just helping to raise awareness around unaccompanied youth and talking about the issue, talking about the program, and of course, donating funds or supplies that students can use is another way to help, and urging your representatives to support legislation that address youth houselessness. Just some considerations that we've been taking over this last 6 months or so, 8 months. Oh gosh, how long are we into this thing? It's a time warp. We are working within the CDC guidelines. I did mention that homelessness will be increasing, and we are planning for the need to be increasing for unaccompanied youth as well. Program participant and staff health and safety is our top priority. And we are working with each home provider and student on an individual basis, remotely and to their comfort level, as far as arrangements for a student moving into a host home. So we have had students move in during the pandemic. They have moved into housing, and sometimes a home provider would like the student to have a COVID test before they move in. That's fine. We can try to arrange that. Other times they are not concerned about it, and the student just moves in. We just work within the comfort level of all parties. So these are just some quotes from students in their own words. I won't read them out to you, but just some themes that I see from our students is the feeling of safety, the feeling of being supported, the feeling of being welcomed in and included in the family's activities. Is what we hear a lot from students, and I think those are the most important things. So there's my contact information. If you want more information, or you want to be a home provider, which would be awesome, or if you'd like to be a member of the care team or support the program in any other way, that's there too. I'll leave that up for just a second if you want to write that down. And Bryce, I can include that and email that to you for the follow-up. And that is pretty much all I have. Does anybody have questions?
Well, sure, I have a question for you. We have hosted kids in the past who have been, for whatever reason, have not been able to stay in their houses and graduate from high school and then go on to college. So we've done it either from very short periods of time or for long periods of time. You know, we've done both. Are there any specific restrictions of things that you restrict the host families from that would automatically eliminate them from being a host family?
If there's something that would come back on a criminal background check that's violent,
Sure.
definitely.
Well,
I mean, some of those
you're going to pass the background check. That's an automatic.
right. And also we're not, I mean, if there's like a 20-year-old drug charge, that's not really something that we're concerned about. We're not going to eliminate somebody, you know, it's not like an automatic, if anything flags on it, automatic disqualification, absolutely not. You know, we're just looking for specific things that would potentially put a student in danger, obviously. So like I said, it's an individualized program. So we have families that host that come from a variety of backgrounds, and it just, because we allow the students to choose who they live with, they're pretty good about, oh, I don't want to live with that family, they have dogs, or, you know, I don't feel comfortable, you know, with smoking in the house, or things like that. So I don't know if you have something specific in mind, but it's really an individual basis. What we're mainly looking for is that there's a safe space for them and a nurturing environment, and that the people that they would live with are safe. So
No other questions? Well, thank you, Amy, for coming and sharing with us about your organization, what you're working on. It sounds amazing. I'm glad that this is out there for young people. And I'm sure it's very gratifying for the host families as well to build those relationships and to help out other youth. Amy's contact information and links to this organization will be in next week's Rotateller, as well as Bryce will get a copy of that video so that we can take a look and a listen to that. So thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you so much.